Hey there, friends. How's it going today? David Potts with Song Notes here. I want to answer an email that came in from a member in the Song Notes community. Jim, your email popped out here. I've been answering member emails all day. And Jim, you asked a question about CAGED. Let me bring this up here. I want to show you all this. And this bold part, it's Jim's words, but it's my emphasis because he asks a great question, one that I've never really thought about before. But I want to sort of showcase it here and give you my quick thoughts on it, okay? The topic is CAGED, right? So Jim, you say you've gone over my CAGED lessons and you still don't get it, right? The value and the significance of the CAGED system when it comes to learning and playing songs. That is the key part of this, right? Now, the next part of the email is great because you clarify that, hey, you understand basic guitar music theory, and Jim and I have emailed many times so everyone else knows over the years. So Jim, I always love your emails, and this is not the first time we've corresponded, but I love this backstory. You understand guitar theory, you understand where bar chords come from, how to move them up and down the neck. You understand how chords are made, 1, 4, 5, all that stuff. So you're not a spring chicken, so to speak, when it comes to all this. But your question remains. When it comes to CAGED, you don't get the value of it when learning and playing songs. And let me give you my thoughts on it, Jim, because I think you touch on a really good point here, right? For anyone else, if you're ever following song tutorials from myself, from anyone else on YouTube, you know, good teachers show you exactly what to play, and maybe they'll explain what's going on there and everything. But I think that when you are aiming to just play it exactly how a teacher plays it or how an artist plays it, whether it's strumming, chords, bar chords, riffs, licks, all that stuff, you don't necessarily need to have an underlying firm grasp on all the sort of concepts and mental models we use to make sense of the entire fretboard if you're only learning a certain sequence of chords or riffs in a very prescribed way. In other words, you don't need CAGED to follow lessons and to fully learn songs, I don't think, right? But what is the value of it? Here's what I would say, Jim, and everyone else wondering. If you aim to leave the beaten path, right? Maybe play a riff that the song uses, but play it at a different part in the fretboard. Maybe you want to do some soloing or some riffing, or maybe you're playing along with someone and you want to add some color, some fills, some licks. Having an awareness, whether it's using the CAGED system or any other system you have in mind, of where these reliable shapes are for scales, for arpeggios, for riffs, all that sort of thing, it will help you, right? Let me give you all an example here of what I mean. So I'm working on Scarlet Begonias by the Grateful Dead, and I am doing a version that uses open chord shapes, right? So if you put capo 4, that's what I would be doing for the Scarlet Begonias lesson. But the main part of the song, the verse, it goes from a C chord, right? As I was walking down Grosvenor Square. Then it goes to a G. And over the G, we're going to play this riff. Okay? I would call this a sort of dominant 7 arpeggio with a major 6 added in there. Don't have to worry about what that means. This is a very common bluesy kind of thing, right? But the cool part is, you could play it just like I taught. I'll give you the tabs in my lesson and all that stuff, and you don't need to understand any of the CAGED stuff we're talking about here. But the cool part is, say you're playing a song, and you want to play it an octave higher, or maybe you want to play it an octave higher still. Now those last 2 versions I just played, I was able to play those because I understood the notes and specifically the intervals or the scale degrees I was playing in the sort of place where the main song is played. But because I understand, and I've been practicing a lot the last month, CAGED stuff up and down the fretboard, I just know that I can play that same riff right here, right? Using this D shape, and I also know I can play it up here using this A shape. And I just know with certainty it's going to give me the same notes in the end. And that way, if I was to play the song on my own, right? Let me just give me one verse to demonstrate how I could use this to sort of flavor things up, right? As I was walking down Grosvenor Square, not a chill to the weather, but a nip to the air. From another direction. Right, so I go into the bridge and I move along with the song there. But the point is that one little thing I played it down here first, then I played it up here second. It kind of gives this nice diversity of sound, right? I'm not playing the same exact open position riff all the time. So that's an example of where CAGED would come in handy, right? So if you just want to basically have that creative freedom to express yourself, whether it's through taking a riff and just moving it up an octave and moving it to a different position on the fretboard, that's where CAGED will come in handy when you're learning songs, but you don't need it. Okay, if you want to follow very prescribed, tabs or instructions from myself or another teacher, that's totally fine, and that's not a derisive, dismissive. That's not a bad thing to do. I've learned hundreds of songs that way, right? But if you have a desire in you to leave the beaten path sometimes and do things in your own way here and there, that's where an awareness of the fretboard and these shapes, whether you sort of go by the CAGED moniker or if you called it something else or you had some other system, right? The CAGED, again, it's just a model that describes the terrain. The terrain, these frets, these strings, these notes, it's there. It doesn't care what we call it, right? I think the CAGED system is a very handy framework because it uses concepts we already know: the C shape, the A shape, the G shape, the E shape, the D shape. And it shows us that those same shapes can be moved up the fretboard and they exist in every key. The simple example here, just before I close this out, I can play a G chord like this. That's the G shape. I can play it like this. This is the E shape, right? C, A, G, E. What's after E? Well, that would be the D shape, right? And see my CAGED lessons for if you need a refresher on these shapes. This is the D shape. What's after D in CAGED? It starts over again at C. So then that would be this one. Okay? What's after the C shape? C, A. Okay, everything I just played you was a G major chord that notes G, B, and D. But I was using different shapes, and the names of those shapes comes from these open position chords. Now that might be, okay, what good is that? What good is it to play these chords everywhere? Well, here's the cool part. From each of those positions, you can play arpeggios, you can play pentatonic scale, major scale, Mixolydian scale, little riffs. And that riff that I played, okay, that's using the G shape in open position. What's after G? The E shape. What's after the E shape? The D shape. What's after the D shape? The C shape. After the C shape, I have to think about it. But the cool part is, whether you're thinking about it with shapes in your head or just shapes visually on the fretboard, it gives you the same result, right? That's the A shape, and then it all repeats again, okay? So my point is, I've been practicing this a lot, so it helps that I'm able to do that. But Jim and everyone else, you don't need CAGED to learn songs, but it's going to help you make sense of and quickly see the possibilities available to you. That's what I wrote down earlier that I wanted to share. Okay, so it's not needed, but certain songs you're going to notice are just really, really ripe for this and everything. So the quick recommendation I have, y'all, is Jim, this answers your question about which lessons talk about this. Check out lesson 507 on my website. I talk about the CAGED poster I have hanging on my wall. It's just the major scale patterns all up and down the fretboard and the CAGED shapes that are sort of evident right there. And I talk about using simple melodies: Row Your Boat, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, When the Saints Go Marching In. And for each of these, I show how to play it in a few different positions. I just think that's a very helpful way to demonstrate how you can take a song and move it around the fretboard. You don't need to stay pinned in one place. But the final point to Jim and everyone else is, don't feel like you have to understand all this stuff to learn songs. Okay? You can just learn songs the way they're taught, and that's totally, totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You do not need to have ambitions to play lead guitar and to be able to improvise over the entire neck. It's totally fine. Well, I've been playing 25 years guitar. Only in the past couple years have I really kind of gotten into moving up in the neck and just having a desire to sort of express myself wherever I am in a way that sounds different from whatever else the other guitarist is playing. So that's going to do it for this lesson, y'all. Thanks for watching. Any other questions, let me know. See the links in the descriptions for more videos of this topic that I've made. And any other questions y'all have, send them in. I'm always happy to hear. So I'll see you in the next one. And until then, take care and bye-bye.